Okay, thanks for jumping in. Let's get started. All right, so that's pretty much it for the aside. I won't do the footer because it's a little more complicated, and all I can say is that the footer really has a div and it has some paragraph in there for the, your mission statement or whatever you want to have there. And then it comprises of columns of unordered lists. Okay. So depending on how many links or how many things you have, you're just really creating an unordered list with a set of links inside them. And you get the idea. And the remainder of the footer has copyright detail and it has another navigation. You could also use the nav. You could say, nav and then create an unordered list and then have your list items, however many you need. And you could set them up in a column type fashion and you can go ahead and create the footer nav. But I just want to give you an idea of the layout. And when it's all said and done, what we've really done is we've semantically laid out our site, or our page, I should say, in a way that makes sense. Like visually, you can see that there's a header. It contains some content. It has a section that contains navigation, brands, whatever, call to action. Then you have a main section. And within this main section, you have whatever is unique to that page. In this case, we have a banner, we have some trending articles, we have a parallax background image, and then we have blog stories. And within this section, that blog story is divided up or contained within a div, and it has 3 columns or 3 items within those divs that have articles, and then towards the end, it has an aside. So if you think about it like that, it sounds confusing, but with practice, this all will make sense. So let's jump over to our browser and I can show you what this looks like without any styles. And it's semantically laid out. Here's the page laid out without any styles, semantically correct. So we have our city stories, we have our popular posts, our recent posts, categories, footers, and then we have all of the navigation for the footer inside of navigational links like unordered lists. And then we have our copyright. So as you can see, it doesn't look glorious and it's not set up in a way to look, fully aesthetically pleasing, but this is how it starts. And when you add styles to this, you end up with something along the lines of this, depending on how you add your styles. All right, so here we are back with the styles that I've applied with Tailwind CSS, and you can do this with CSS too. It's just for the convenience of this video that I'm going to do it this way. So now you can see that, within the navigation section here, we have these divs and they're acting like containers. So they're helping us style the content and place them in a certain way. So we have a desktop navigation version. And if I was to go to the browser and I inspect this, and then I choose something, let's say iPhone, and you see it adds this mobile style navigation to it. Now, what I didn't do was I didn't spend a lot of time on the responsive work, but I will do that at a later time. And you can see how this is laid out. So over here, that really sums up the header and the links, the main section. And here's that banner area I was telling you about. So what I did was I used the banner as a background, and then here's the image, and then these are the links. So the title Toronto, the paragraph tag that has, the author, and then over here we have the details that it represents. So if this was like an article, you could click through and it would take you there. Down here as well, we also have the trending article section. And once again, this is where those divs come into play. So by just using styling and some of the divs with some CSS, you can get really nice effects and you can do things. There's no JavaScript right now. There is just, CSS and some styling and HTML to help give this effect and do things like this. So this is where the divs come into play. And if you essentially break it down, we can see that with the stylings, we have the 3 cards, right? Here they are, 1, 2, 3. And then below that, we duplicate that div section and we have the exact same 3 cards, okay? But they contain different content. So this is representative of this section down here. So as you can see, the divs will come into play as well as the semantic elements to help with organization and to help group elements or tags together. The parallax section, this was done again with some styling, and all you can see is just you know, this text in here. What I could have done here was, you know, I could have put this in a span tag, I guess, or something along those lines. It wouldn't really change the layout of the context, but it would probably make more sense semantically or even for SEO or something along those lines. So if we come out here and we check it, you know, this is how this is styled, right? And below we have the city stories. So this was the one that was a little bit confusing or hard to explain, but I think it makes more sense now that you can see the styles and the groupings and how things are situated. So over here we have the H2, right? And here it is, the story, right? And then below that we have a div. So the div contains this content, right? And it's a grid. So once again, the div is invisible, but it's containing a grid, 3 columns worth of content, right? And then over here we have, inside that we have the articles, right? And then we have the articles section here, and there are 2, and that's also wrapped in a div. We have these 2 articles wrapped in this div container, and then we do the same thing below here. Now, if I had to loop through this once again, it wouldn't quite work out in the way I expected. There'd be some kind of, I guess, masonry type grid, but that's the effect that I'm going for when I create multiple pieces. But in this case, you could arrange this a different way, and that's another story. But here we go with the aside section, which is this area over here. So we have the H3 with the popular posts. It sits up here. Then we have another H3 for the recent posts. We have the unordered list of actual images and links attached to those. I will just add another comment here. I'll just duplicate this for now. And then down here, we have the recent posts, like I said before, and this is the unordered list. And each list contains an image, a span, right? If I wanted to do so, this should be site. And then each image is literally containing an image with the span tag, who took the photo, the time tag, right, which is semantically giving us the time, and then any other content within that. And we just repeat this literally 5 times. Okay, so if you were to loop this content, it would make sense. And then the categories kind of do the same thing. So we have the categories, we have an unordered list, and we style these a certain way, and we style the amount of articles per se, and all this other information down here. I just called it advertisement, but it's just to kind of give attribution to some of the artists that took the photos that I didn't give credit to with the citations and stuff like that. If you're curious, these are the ones that I took, and a few down here. I do love photography as well. And then finally, this is the advertisement section down here. So I wouldn't worry too much about the styling, guys. It's the HTML we want to focus on, the layout, the semantics, the tags. And as you learn more tags, there's a few more tags that we have to cover. This will all make sense, right? And the footer, once again, is kind of the same thing. We have the H2. This is for screen readers. We have our mission statement. We have our logo. So this would be the mission statement, our logo, our social media. And that's set in an unordered list. If we were to minimize this, you would clearly see that here. And then we have the footer navigation. And once again, the footer navigation is contained in some divs. And within those divs, there's unordered lists that contain the actual footer navigation, and they're using a column or a grid. And these links, as you can see, based on the divs, are essentially repeated, you know, as many times as there are links or columns. So in our case, that would be 3, right? So you have the H3 here that's styled a certain way. You have the columns, the navigations with the unordered lists and the anchor tags within those. And then we have this address thing that's kind of like our design. And all that is, it just gives semantic information to, you know, robots and screen readers to tell you that there's an address here. We have a phone number. If you were to actually click on this based on using the attributes available for the anchor, this would essentially dial this fake number. And then we have our input field, which we haven't covered inputs. And then we have our buttons, which we'll get to in forms and tables. And then we have some graphics and then some copy. So this is essentially it. And I did a lot to kind of like make this look aesthetically pleasing. But once you understand CSS and some of the things on this channel, it will be a sleight of hand for you guys. It won't be too hard. And for those who are interested, I will leave this copy of this code and I will place this in my Buy Me a Coffee section, and I'll provide the link and you guys can take a look at that at your leisure and you'll have access to the full code. And I will try to make that a little bit more responsive. I'll clean this up a little bit, but I know there was a lot going on here and this is a really long video, but I really wanted you guys to understand how you take markup and you style it and you create something like this. And it could look totally different depending on how you style it, once again, guys. But the core thing is the markup, it's the HTML. Do remember that, and this takes practice, and when you logically think about it, I think you guys will nail it. And that's it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like the video if you found this useful. Leave your comments and thoughts below. Take care, and I will see you next time.